But please, where you are right now, don't move too much forward.
I'll just stay here.
No, no, you can, but don't move. When you come too close, then you're.
You're my Dubai connection. We're gonna do we're gonna work together in a few months.
That's correct.
And see if we can start a seminar in Dubai on
Dubai.
NLP. And you're very knowledgeable on NLP, but also body language and career building. A lot of people think that what success looks like is like this, right? So you start there and then you go there, and maybe you already know what this looks like, but then people say like what success actually looks like is like that.
That's
right?
true.
Hello.
Hello. How are you, Jasper, my friend?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm fine, very well as well. Jasper, for the sake of our audiences, let's start with introducing each other.
Sure. Do you want me to introduce you, or you want to introduce
I would
you?
like you to introduce yourself first, Jasper. You are the man, one of the youngest, most motivated NLP trainers as well as a coach I have met in my life. So I'm inspired by you.
I believe you didn't even read my bio, did you? You just came up with this, right? Because it's you almost nailed what I put in my bio, but it's in Dutch, so most people who don't speak Dutch don't know that this is in my bio.
See, I am basically, what do you call mind reader, so I can read your mind even without knowing your language.
You have more than six senses to you.
Okay, so who is Jasper?
Yeah. Well, I think you pretty much nailed it. I think I'm one of the youngest trainers of the International Society of NLP Training with Richard, and with that I work mainly with professionals. So I work with young professionals. I think the average age of the people in my practitioner course now would be something like 32. And they're all people that are really ambitious and wanting to take their next step in their career. What I do a lot is the professional NLP part. So it's really build on the skills that you can really use. I had a business lunch with a lady client of mine 2 weeks ago, and she has her own company. She gives trainings around the world on social media. And I was talking to her, and I was talking about the stuff that we learned from Richard in Orlando, right? And I was trying to explain to her, like, some of those things that we learn are specifically for trainers of NLP, right? You don't use them, or most people won't use them in everyday life, at least not consciously. And I was explaining to her that the thing I'm most passionate about is taking those things you know about your unconscious and turning them into something that people can actually use, even without doing years of studying into NLP, the stuff that we've done. That they can use it immediately. So I really try to condense everything from NLP, which is a lot, into something that they can practically use for their business. For instance, to work with their staff, or to convey a message more easily, or just to be more happy in your work and get promotions without making too much of an effort into into forcing it. Yeah, that's a good one, right? I can see your face. Whoa,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's the thing I believe in, is that a lot of people ask me, like, how can I get a pay raise in this chat that I'm going to have with my boss? And usually I say, like, the pay raise or the promotion you're getting, you don't get that within that conversation of 1 or 2 hours. You get that within the 1 or 2 years you've already worked there. So I'm trying to teach people to do their influencing within those years, instead of within just one conversation.
Wow, that was quite an extensive explanation of Jasper.
What would be your most important piece of information and knowledge for a young person that just started out their career and is now thinking, like, how am I going to build this into a life that I want to live? What would be your piece of information or your piece of knowledge for them?
So my sincere advice to all those people, is follow your passion. Simple.
Yeah.
Money will follow you.
Yeah.
If you follow your passion, money will follow you. It's a secondary thing. I strongly believe with all the the philanthropist work I'm doing, and with all these other techniques that I'm using, I strongly believe that it is people like you and me who have to bring change. Because as you said, having knowledge
Yeah.
Education is one thing, knowledge
Yeah.
is second, but
And for
applying
the
it.
person watching and listening this, it's also a person like you.
Yeah.
So it's not just the two of us. I mean, it's
Exactly.
it's people like you
Like
who are
you.
listening to this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
you, each one of you, I would say, put it
Yeah.
like that, each one of you has to take your own responsibility. And
Definitely.
I strongly believe, practice, preach that
Yeah.
the only person I want you to change is you,
Yeah.
not anybody else. Because when
Yeah.
you change, the whole perception changes, the whole
Yeah.
perspective changes. You need to be responsible for your own actions,
Yeah.
and you need to do it now. I mean,
Yeah.
procrastination, if you keep on procrastinating, it will
Yeah.
never happen. You know?
And that's I think also the thing when I start to change and you see me changing, you decide to change yourself.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. What made you start this at such an early age, where children are mostly fascinated with the cartoons and probably going out and playing squash or
Yeah.
stuff like that?
Yeah.
And number one, and number two, second part of the same question is,
Sure.
uh, how did your family take it that instead of studying regular class school, you have been doing
Right.
all this crazy work which at that time people
Well,
were not even aware of that much?
what helps there is something that Richard also taught that the when he was starting out, he also worked with some young guys in school, and he sometimes still tells this story. And what he used to tell them, like if these kids were like, I don't want to go to school and those types of things, he would tell them like, if you are so smart and so cool as you pretend to be, at least be smart enough to fool your teachers into giving you high grades. And this is something that I completely went for. So I did actually go to university. So I did go to school. I did do all those things. And at the same time, when I was doing it, I was optimizing. So I did the Alfredo-Pareto principle, the 80-20. So I made sure that I did like within 20% of the effort, I got 80% of the grades. So I got university with 6s and 7s in a scale to 10, but never like 8s or 9s because I used the time that I had left to study NLP at the same time. But my parents, I guess they only understood fully what I was doing because I've been an entrepreneur for longer. Also, I've had a lot of ventures, which is good. You can go in light speed also when you push yourself to do the stuff you don't know yet. And I've always pushed myself to do that. But I think my mother only got this idea, I guess, 5 years ago or something, when I was reading a book of Richard Branson, and I was just reading it there, and it was laying about, and she picked it up and started reading a few pages. And did you read it also?
Yeah,
The biography?
Virgin King.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you start reading those books, it's really it's enticing when you start reading a few pages. So she said, like, can I hang on to this book? So I said, yeah, I'll finish it first, and then I'll give it back to you. And she read it cover to cover, I think within a week or something, and she called me up and she said, wow, I finally understand what you're doing.
Revelation.
Which, yeah, by no standard am I starting another Virgin. By no standard, and I'm not as productive as Richard Branson was in his younger years. But I don't have that as a goal. I'm following a different Richard's path.
Yeah,
Let's put it
you
like
still are
that.
following one of the Richards, right? There are
Yeah,
actually many Richards: the Braveheart, the Virgin King, and the Bandler.
yeah. Also, you asked me when did I start with NLP. We had a dog when I grew up. A Jack Russell Terrier, which is it's a tiny dog, but they have a lot of character. Let's put it like that. And we didn't know, but he was a little bit abused when he was younger. They had a guy there, a young guy my age actually he was. So he must have been 7 or something when it was a small dog, and he used to play quite roughly with it. So the dog was kind of traumatized, and that came out during the years that he was with us. And at one point, I was probably around 12 then, so the dog was a few years old. And my parents were just fed up with it because he would start biting and growling out of nowhere, and they had no clue where it came from. So they were ready to give him an injection and be done with it. And I was around 12 then, and I was like, I
It's not
don't want
on.
this. This is my dog. I don't want this to happen. And I made a deal with my parents, and they said like, okay, you can keep the dog, but it's your dog from now on, and you have to take care of him and make sure that he behaves. So I really dove in there. So I had some leverage to do this, you can imagine. So I was reading books on dogs, and I went to a course with the dog, and I learned about and I learned not to a Richard course with the dog, but to a dog training course. And I learned about body language in dogs. So what I started to find out that it wasn't out of nowhere when he started biting and making a scene. You could easily see whenever he started to feel threatened, even minutes before it would get out of hand. And in this way, I could turn that situation around, and he lived a very happy life. I think eventually he got to be 16 or 17 before he passed away. And then when I started seeing this in dogs, I started noticing that people are very much like dogs too.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So thank you very much once again,
Thank you,
and see
friend.
you later, Insha.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.